Hello, I'm David Kerr, Professor of Cancer Medicine from the University of Oxford. Today I'd like to talk about equity of access to cancer drugs. Now, those of you who attend Medscape regularly will have heard me talk about this many times in a global scale. You know that I'm interested in global cancer control and what we can do to help support intellectually, financially, our brothers and sisters who deliver cancer care to the very best of their ability, but in difficult situations. I'd like to talk about a situation closer to home, though, but still about equity of access. Many years ago, goodness, almost 30 years ago, I moved from Glasgow, my hometown, to be a terribly young green professor at the University of Birmingham. It was a great time for me, a wonderfully welcoming city and university. And I guess that's where I learned to cut my teeth in terms of building an academic centre, new hospitals, and so on. But with fire in my belly, then, one of the things I found most distressing was at that time, all those years ago, something called postcode prescribing. It's a particular facility of the National Health Service in the UK at that time. The way that it was delivered was through regional health authorities, district health authorities, who had significant control over the budgets that were spent looking after the community, the population that the district health authorities looked after. What it meant, though, was that because of independent decision making, literally, when I was a kid in Birmingham, there were patients who lived on opposite sides of the same street, but because of geographic boundaries, one half of the street was in Health District A, the other in Health District B. And I could prescribe, in those days, expensive cancer medicines for one half of the street, but not the other. So there literally were neighbours who were getting unfair access to drugs. It's crazy. And the then new Labour government, Tony Blair as Prime Minister, Alan Milburn as our truly fantastic health secretary, um, with support from a broad group of academics, including myself, set up NICE, our National Institute for Clinical Excellence. This is now, I think, a world famous health technology assessment outfit. And what they do is that they, on behalf of the United Kingdom, on behalf of the National Health Service, they make judgments, transparent judgments as to whether we can afford drugs, medical devices of any sort. And they do that by looking at the quality of the clinical data, supporting any new intervention, any new drug, and they look at the price and an independent health economic analysis, and they come to a judgment as to whether the data are strong enough, whether the intervention is sufficiently cost effective to warrant support from our taxation-based NHS. And despite lots of fist waving, NICE is a force for good and is a force for fairness. I've no doubt about that. But there are some anomalies in the situation. This has been highlighted in a recent editorial in Lancet Oncology, a rather well-written one, talking about olaparib. Olaparib has been approved for the treatment of BRCA-positive prostate cancer, quite an important step forward, with significant improvements in progression-free survival in the pivotal trial that it was moved forward in. Now, we have devolved governments in the United Kingdom now. I'm Scottish, you can tell by my strange accent. And the Scottish government has set up its own medicines approval group. And devolution is a good thing, devolution of responsibility, devolution of budget, so that budgets can be focused on the communities which need most, so that they can be prioritised. It makes complete sense. However, the National Health Service is that British institution that unites the whole of the United Kingdom. There's nothing that makes us feel more British than our NHS. I would argue government's greatest gift to citizens. Puzzlingly, though, olaparib was not approved by NICE. Now, the technical decision, there's a possibility that that may change. But their initial finding was that there were problems around cost effectiveness, and there was some question mark about the control arm in the pivotal study, whether it was truly a gold standard or not. And therefore that has laid, at least for the time being, for NICE to say no to olaparib, but the Scottish Medicines Agency to say yes. So now we have a border. I told you at the beginning about postcode prescribing, a border that was down the middle of a street in Birmingham. But now we have a border that separates England from Scotland. Citizens of Scotland have access to this drug, which I think is a real drug, a drug that was developed in the United Kingdom, a drug that has drawn significant funding and support of patients who are entered in trials and so on. But Scotland says yes and England says no. And that goes against our sense of Britishness. It goes against our sense of collective belief in the NHS and how the NHS should span, I think, our national borders. And I think there's a wake-up message here for the devolved governments, for the British government, from our Department of Health, to really get their act together. I think it's unsustainable that citizens in some different corners of our United Kingdom can receive different treatment for reasons which aren't immediately clear at all. So this is a clarion call. This is one example, there are others, of saying this just sounds wrong to me. And if the NHS is the anchor institution that keeps us with that sense of being British and of coming together, collectivism, as I said before, we need to iron out these bizarre anomalies. We really, really do. Because it feels unfair and wrong and just not right. Now, I'd be really interested. I hope this doesn't sound too parochial or too, navel-gazing in terms of the United Kingdom. I really hope not. There are wider issues here around equity of access to drugs, as I said before. But I'd be really interested in what you thought. I really would, and would welcome any comments. As always, Medscapers, thanks for listening. Over and out.